We are getting a new Gravity Falls season, but it's a prequel. Okay, so the website, this is not a website.com, has finally updated. Seuss fixed the problem, and we've been left with this computer. When you type in season 3, it says season 2. When you type in season 2, it says season 1. But when you type in season 1, it says season -1 Anti-Gravity Falls. This is leading many people to believe this could very well be a prequel of Dipper and Mabel before their adventures at Gravity Falls. Although I think this is less likely because it wouldn't really be that intriguing, let's be honest. It would just be the day-to-day life of them, which I would still be very excited for a new season of that, but I don't think it's that likely. Now, maybe this is me being hopeful, but I think there could potentially be a case of Stanford Pines getting its own prequel season. A more in-depth look of his adventures when he was inside the portal. Or better yet, maybe this could just outright be a season 3 sequel, and they're just trying to trick us with this season -1 Anti-Gravity Falls name. It could be that. Honestly, I'm very confused, but I firmly believe that it's probably just going to be a prequel.
Tattoos that can get you in serious trouble. Wade Wilson edition. First up, we've got the lettering TTG on the left side of his face. That stands for Trained to Go, which is also another way of saying ready for war. Next up, we've got the writing out of sight on the side of his face. I'm not sure how clearly you could see that, and that will make sense in just a minute. Over to his neck, on the left side, you're going to see the numbers 14. Over to the right side, we find the numbers 88. The symbol 1488 bears ties to white supremacist groupings. That is something I've covered multiple times in the past, and you can reference that should you want to know more. Over to the right side of his face, you can quite clearly see a very strong Joker theme going on. I don't know if you can make this out, but that reads, "Why so serious?" which, as you know, is a line from Heath Ledger's Joker. To tie the whole theme together, he's also got the mouse stitching, which has actually become quite a popular tattoo as of late. Back over to his neck, you will find the writing "Bred for War," very much carrying on that aggressive style of tattooing, which tells you a lot about his character. Make sure to follow for part 2.
This poor fucking kid. Listen, I know a lot of people shit on this movie and don't like it for whatever reason. But not only do I think it absolutely fucking rips, I think it might be better than the original. I'm Chuck. I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit the like button, give me a follow, and this is the Amityville Horror 2005. And I'm guessing that people probably hate this because of Ryan Reynolds. Because this was pre-Ryan Reynolds is a megastar. This movie is dark, it's shocking, it's absolutely fucking brutal, it has great jump scares, I love the characters, and watching Ryan Reynolds descend into absolute madness is a chef's kiss. He absolutely kills this role. But what really gets me is the fucking kids, these poor fucking kids. Just the raw emotion of how terrified they are from all the events happening. This one genuinely gets under my skin and unnerves me. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Amityville Horror 2005. I fucking love it. I'm Chuck. I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit the like button. Give me a follow.
Did this man kill his entire family because the haunted house he was living in made him do it? There's 2 families we're going to be talking about today, the Defoe family and the Lutz family, but we're going to start with the Defoes. On November 13th, 1974, their oldest son, 23-year-old Ronnie, ran into his local bar that was just down the street from his family's home, frantically screaming that he found both of his parents shot dead in the house. Tragically, it was not only Ronnie's parents that had been shot, his entire family was found dead in his home. His father, Ronald Sr., his mother, Louise, and then all 4 of his younger siblings, 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark, and 9-year-old John, were all found lying face down in their beds and had all been shot. It appeared that they had all been shot in their sleep and that none of them woke up despite all of these loud shot noises and that there was no sign of a struggle. And the very next day, Ronnie Defoe confessed to killing his entire family. He claims that he woke up randomly at 3:15 in the morning and that he had been hearing voices either plotting against him or telling him to hurt his family. And that once he started, he just couldn't stop and that it all happened very fast. Apparently, Ronnie wasn't the only family member that had been experiencing something like this. Only 6 months before he was killed, the father, Ronald Sr., hired a priest to come to the home that specialized in exorcisms because he had a devil on his back. That's a direct quote. During Ronnie's trial, both him and his lawyer claimed that Ronnie had been driven mad by evil presences in the home, and pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the jury did not buy the devil made me do it plea, and he was found guilty and sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. And his former home on 112 Ocean Ave in Amityville, New York sat empty for over a year, actually 13 months to be exact, until the Lutz family moved in. George and Kathy Lutz and Kathy's 3 children all moved into the home in December 1975, and only 28 days later after moving in, they fled the home, never to return again, not even to get their belongings. George and Kathy were aware of the brutal crime that had been committed in the home when they bought it, but it was being insanely discounted, and also they really weren't the superstitious types. But a family friend was able to convince the Lutz family to have a priest come and bless the home because of that terrible crime that had been committed only a year earlier. Reportedly, the priest sensed a sinister presence in one of the upstairs bedrooms and warned the family to not allow anyone to sleep in that room. And the Lutz family almost immediately started to experience some really odd things after moving into the house. Just to tell you guys a few of these experiences, there would be terrible smells in the home with no explanation where the smells are coming from. Doors would slam shut. The glass of the windows would just smash. Swarms of flies would appear. Swarms of flies and different insects would appear in the home with no explanation, even though it was the dead of winter. The daughter befriended a spirit named Jody, and all the children began to sleep face down in their stomachs, which they had never done before, and this was the way that all of the Defoe family were found in their beds the day that they were killed. And all of the family members' personalities began to change almost immediately after moving into the home, but what was ever affecting the family was mainly targeting the father, George. He became incredibly aggressive. He would obsessively sit in front of the fireplace for hours because he was constantly cold. And George also says that he would randomly wake up at 3:15 in the morning every single night, the exact same time that Ronnie Defoe woke up to kill his entire family. And after only living in the house for 28 days, so less than a standard month, the Lutz family fled the home, never to return again, not even to get their belongings, including their brand new boat that they had just bought, and also George's custom motorcycles, which were apparently his prized possessions. And George and Kathy Lutz refused to ever speak about what happened that final night that they had in the house that forced them to flee, because it was just too scary to talk about. Many have speculated that whatever drove Ronnie Defoe to kill his entire family possessed George, and that's why they fled the home. This story quickly got a lot of attention, and a group of psychic researchers and paranormal investigators spent a lot of time in the home doing like a paranormal investigation, like immediately after the Lutz family left, including probably the 2 most famous paranormal investigators of all time, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Everyone on the research team has their own story about all the terrifying experiences that they had in the home, but all of them agreed that there was something evil in that home that had been there for a long time, even longer than before the Defoes had been killed in the home. And probably the most interesting thing that came from this investigation came from a camera that was set up to take a photo every 5 minutes. The camera was set up to take a photo of like the doorways where all the bedrooms were, where the Defoe family had been killed in their sleep. And one photo is particularly interesting. Out of 100 something photos, there's this one photo that appears to show a little boy hiding in the doorway. Extremely terrifying, and every member of that research team swore up and down that no children were brought along for this paranormal investigation, so this is a mystery who this little boy is. A lot of people think it resembles the youngest member of the Defoe family, 9-year-old John. Many successful books and upwards of 20 movies were all made about the Amityville Horror, all marketing them as being based on a true story. This house is probably the most famous haunted house of all time, but what if I told you it might have all been a hoax? For one thing, many people have lived in the house after the Lutz family fled the home, and none of them have ever reported a single thing of paranormal activity. Also, parts of the home that the Lutz family claimed were destroyed by ghosts were perfectly intact when they moved in. Also, some parts of their story turned out to be proven just plain false and made up. Like they claimed on New Year's Day, they went outside to see hoof marks that had been made by a demon in the snow. Turns out there was no snow on the ground on that day in Amityville, New York. Also, years later, Ronnie Defoe's lawyer, William Weber, came out and said that the entire thing was a hoax, and he brainstormed the entire thing with the Lutz family because William Weber was planning on writing a book about it. In the Lutz's family defense, though, William Weber only ever met with the Lutz family after they already fled the home after living in it for 28 days, so it's not like this was planned beforehand. Also, William Weber only met up with the Lutz family because he wanted to write a book, but he planned to give some of the profits from the book to his client, Ronnie Defoe, that killed his entire family, and the Lutzes were not okay with that, so they actually ended up selling their story to a different author, and his book became incredibly successful. It sold millions of copies. They made a movie about it that had many sequels and also many spin-offs, so it's really possible that maybe William Weber only came out and said that the entire thing was a hoax because he was a little salty. George and Kathy Lutz even both passed polygraph tests. I know that's like not the biggest piece of evidence, but that matters to you. They also never changed their stories up until the day they died, other than admitting that some things were exaggerated for the book and the movie. But also, Ronnie Defoe, the man who killed his entire family in the Amityville house, has changed his story countless amounts of times about what happened that night and why it happened and who was involved, all the way up until the day he died just a couple years ago. I'm super interested to get your guys' take on this story today. I cannot wait to read the comments on this one. Do you think that this is truly a haunted house with an evil force that targets families? Or do you think that this is one of the most successful hoaxes of all time? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. And while you're there, please let me know what case you'd want me to cover next. I love you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow.
His name is Brian. Along with 16 other mentally ill children, he's on a bus trip to the zoo. Brian believes that somebody is following him.
Oh, truck's following us. Truck's following us. That truck's following us. That truck's following us. That guy back there is driving me crazy. Oh, God. Oh, God, they dropped in. Oh, God. Oh, no, wait, you better stop that truck. No, wait, you better stop that truck. I'm going for blood! It's gonna kill my motherfucking dog, my dad! I'm gonna kill you!
Brian suffers from mania and schizophrenia. He's been this way since he was 4 years old.
They called this man the Toy Box Killer, and he might be one of the most terrifying men I ever had the misfortune of reading about. And now you're gonna know all about him too. David Parker Ray had been having dark fantasies of hurting women and just doing the most terrible things to them as young as when he was only 9 years old. He is a textbook sadist, which makes him one of the most terrifying people out there because when he hurt women, he did it because he enjoyed it. Like, deeply enjoyed it. David Parker Ray is known as the Toy Box Killer because he had this trailer in his backyard that he called the Toy Box, that he filled with everything and anything that could cause the most unspeakable pain to his victims. And he spent like over $100,000 on the items inside of his toy box, so there were a lot of things in there. He would kidnap young women to keep in his toy box, and then once they were in his toy box, he would play them a tape recording where he would explain in graphic detail everything that he planned to do to them. Is that not the most terrifying thing you've ever heard? And this tape recording is online if you want to go hear it, but do it at your own risk because it is deeply disturbing. In his toy box, he also had a chair, like a chair that you would find at the Lady Doctor. and then he would chain his victims to the chair. He would essay them and then hurt them in the most unspeakable ways possible. David Parker Ray would also film everything he did to these women, and then he would sell the videos to I don't know who, but scary people, and he would sell them for a lot of money. David Parker Ray did not act alone. He actually had a lot of accomplices, including his own daughter. David's daughter, Jessie, was always very close to her father, almost too close. Like, a lot of people actually think that her father fathered her child, and Jessie was trained from a very young age to be like her father's assistant, and she would help lure women to be her father's victims, including her own friends. And once David decided that he was done with the women that he had in captivity, he would do one of three things to them. He would either kill them, or he would sell them across the Mexico border into human trafficking, or he would even let them go. He would let them go on a remote country back road, and they would never, come forward or turn him in the police, because he kept them so heavily sedated on a bunch of substances that they would not even remember a single thing. Some of his victims that he did let go ended up coming forward years later, after the memories came back years later. So chances are that there's probably a lot of women out there that don't even remember that they were victims of this guy. David Parker Ray was really living a double life. He lived in this really, really small town where everyone knew each other. Everyone thought that he was a normal, good guy, a good father, but they had no idea how evil their neighbor really was. David has also been described as kind of a ladies' man, if you can even believe that, because he always had some pretty young girlfriend. He even had this girlfriend, Cindy, who was also helping him with his toy box. I'm not sure how this man was able to convince so many people to help him out, because even when his daughter Jessie got a boyfriend, he was able to convince the boyfriend to also help with the toy box and help kidnap and kill these victims. So it was just these four people committing the most evil crimes imaginable. And all of this only ever came to light in March of 1999 when David and his girlfriend kidnapped a 22-year-old girl named Cynthia. They had her in captivity for 3 entire days, doing the worst things possible to her, when David's girlfriend accidentally left the keys to her restraints in her reach while David was at work. She grabbed the house phone and tried to call 911, but before she could say anything to the person on the other phone, David's girlfriend came back in, found her, caught her, and then the two started fighting. Luckily, she was able to escape, and she runs to the first house that she can find. She's banging on the door, she's screaming that she's been held captive, and Cynthia's not wearing anything. She's wearing nothing but a dog collar and a bunch of chains. The neighbor calls 911, but because Cynthia has been on all these substances, she can't really remember much. But luckily, she did make that 911 call when she first escaped. So they were able to track where that 911 call was made from and track it right back to David Parker Ray's house. These small town police officers had no idea what they were walking into when they stepped into David's toy box. They find hundreds of videos of what David did to his victims, because remember, he filmed it all, but David tried to say, hey, everything in the videos is consensual, it's just acting. But his 3 accomplices, his girlfriend, his daughter, and his daughter's boyfriend, they all turn on him and they confess everything. They tell the police everything in graphic detail. They told the police that David would kill at least one girl every single year for 40 years, you guys. And that David had this boat and he would take it to this nearby lake that had these ginormous catfish, you guys. And these catfish would eat anything. And that's how David would dispose of his victims. But unfortunately, because of this, they were not able to find a single one of David's victims' bodies. Even though it's believed that David killed at least 60 women, but probably more, and they had videotapes of him doing it, they were not able to charge him with a single one. For the crimes that they were able to find concrete evidence of, they were able to sentence David Parker Ray to 224 years in prison. But get this, after spending 1 day in prison, David Parker Ray had a heart attack and died. So he never even had to serve a prison sentence for all these terrible crimes that he committed. His 3 accomplices, his girlfriend Cindy, his daughter Jessie, and her boyfriend Roy, all spent only a couple years in prison before being released, so they're all out free somewhere in the world right now today. This is one of those terrible cases where you feel like there was no justice that was really gotten and there's no closure because of it, and it's just despicable. This man is so scary, and the fact that there's people like that out there gives me the chills. Please let me know all your guys' thoughts in the comments, and while you're there, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
The actual story behind Coraline.
Oh, it's based on real?
Yeah, it's based on a real thing.
Oh,
with the button eyes and stuff like that, the doll, that's all real. So in New Hampshire, there was a grandma and a little girl. And the grandma was taking care of the little girl because the girl's parents died in a fire. Like the whole house that they were living in got burned down. I think the little girl got rescued like miraculously by the grandma. When she was taking care of her, she didn't let her go outside. Everybody referred to the grandma as like a bad parent. So there's these two kids that went into the house, that explored the house, because they were like, where is this kid? So when they look around, they see clothes, like a kid's clothes everywhere. They go into the girl's room. It's a burned body.
Damn.
With
the girl?
buttons replaced where the eye should be. The girl didn't survive the fire. The grandma just wanted to hold her and keep her just to see, like,
Oh my god.
just because she loved her so much, she wanted to keep
Oh my
her.
god, she just took the bodies?
Yeah. So she kind of turned her
That's
into
the Coraline doll. Oh shit.
Yeah. And remember, she did.
This penguin swam over 5,000 miles and its bones became so fragile that they started breaking. After doing this crazy journey, the penguin was washed up on shore, basically with their life about to end. But everything changed after a man named Joao found the penguin and ended up taking it to try and save its life. He tried everything to save this penguin's life, from hand feeding it, forcing it to drink water, and even taking it on walks, but nothing was working. After several weeks of trying everything he could to save the penguin's life, he basically just gave up. So he let him go, but this was a huge mistake and you won't believe why. Watch the full story. It's actually called My Penguin Friend and it's going to be in theaters on August 16th.
You have to be in the right headspace for Alien Romulus. Like, this is a good mixture of both Alien and Aliens, because Romulus gives you the time to breathe and take in the brooding atmosphere, yet at the same time it's also action-packed. I will say though, like, I'm so disappointed with how each character was offed. After the first one, I realized Fede Alvarez is not going to go the route he did with his debut film, so I had to adjust my expectations, because after giving it some thought, like, the Alien franchise isn't really about the excessive gore anyways. It's a film that focuses a lot on aggressive phallic imagery while questioning mortality. And a quick shout out to David Johnson, like, he was a true star in this. He really makes you feel for his character Andy, but at the same time he was so intimidating when he had to be. And like, to end this with another pro, the setup in the first act felt so reminiscent to those 80s sci-fi films like Total Recall. Like, it was so retro and futuristic and I loved it so much. While this film does have plenty of faults, in the end, it's made by a group of people who respect and love the franchise, and you can clearly see the care put into Alien Romulus.